moon hovered low over the abandoned courtyard, its pale light spilling through cracks in the broken roof tiles to dance across the shattered stone floor. In the center stood the Whispering Gate, its towering pillars carved with strange sigils that seemed to hum with a dormant power. For generations, the villagers of Raven's Hollow had kept their distance, speaking of it only in whispers and fearful glances. Tonight, though, two figures crept forward through tangled underbrush, drawn by promises of answers and by something darker, something that pulsed beneath those carved stones. Lily Hawthorne wiped a bead of sweat from her brow, despite the chill that had crept into the night air. The wind stirred her long auburn hair, carrying with it the tang of moss and decay. Her heart thudded with equal parts dread and excitement. She had spent years chasing shadows, chasing rumors. Now, her lifelong friend Kieran Vale was beside her, offering a steady presence, and together they would press onward where others had turned back. "Are you sure this is the right place?" Lily's voice was barely a whisper. The beam from Kieran's lantern quivered against the gate's surface, revealing the etched patterns of distant constellations and thorny vines. One symbol, in particular, caught Lily's eye, a coiled serpent with eyes of sapphire inlaid into the stone. "This symbol matches the sketch Father kept locked away in his study," Kieran said, voice low. His dark hair fell into his eyes as he leaned closer, tracing the serpent's body with a gloved finger. He believed it pointed to where his grandmother Mara Seraphin sealed something unimaginable. "He never told me why. I think tonight we'll finally understand." Lily swallowed. She knew the stories of Mara Seraphin, a woman rumored to have spoken with spirits. Some claimed she wore a mask of cat whiskers, others that she could split the night with her voice. But those were old stories, hushed around hearth fires to comfort restless children. Mara had vanished decades ago, leaving only legends and her journals behind. Now Kieran possessed one of those journals, given to him by his dying father. No one in Raven's Hollow dared to read it, no one but Kieran. A distant crack echoed through the night, like the soft break of a brittle bone. Lily jumped and glanced over her shoulder, certain she'd glimpsed a tall shape gliding between the skeletal trees. Kieran stiffened, lantern held aloft. The two friends shared a glance heavy with unspoken fear, then moved forward together. They crossed the threshold of the courtyard, stepping onto cold marble slabs that were cracked and covered in moss. Lily's boots made no sound on the damp stone, but in her mind she heard the rhythm of 1,000 years of silence. She remembered the warning scribbled in the journal's margins: "Break the seal, and you break the world's fragile veil. Let nothing loose." Kieran's lantern cast a golden glow on the gate's lock, a massive iron contraption wrought into the shape of a snarling wolf's head. Its jaws were closed, its fangs locked around a keyhole that seemed impossibly small for such a massive beast. On the journal's last page, written in Mara's distinctive looping script, was the incantation required to open those jaws, but the final word had been torn away, leaving only a jagged edge of parchment. Lily took a deep breath and placed her palm on the wolf's cold muzzle. The metal was surprisingly smooth, as though polished by unseen hands. She felt a faint vibration, like the slow heartbeat of something trapped. Her pulse quickened. "Kieran," she murmured. He opened the journal to the incantation, whispering each syllable in a language older than the earth. Lily recognized fragments, words of binding, of hush, of twilight's embrace. As the final lines passed his lips, the ground quivered beneath their feet. A low rumble echoed through the courtyard, and the wolf's jaw creaked open painfully slow, like a mouth unhinging after centuries of sleep. A breath of wind rushed from within the gate, stirring the pages of the journal and tearing free tendrils of dried ivy that had claimed the stone. Lily stumbled backward. In the yawning darkness beyond the threshold, she glimpsed a flash of something alive, a pair of luminous eyes, swirling like twin pools of molten silver. "Kieran, stop!" she cried, but he stood entranced, leaning forward as though drawn by those hypnotic eyes. He raised the lantern, his face caught in the amber glow, excitement, wonder, fear. "You see it, don't you?" he whispered. Lily could only stare. The space beyond the gate was no longer empty. It seemed to have blossomed into a vast expanse of twisted archways and floating platforms bathed in an eerie violet light. Shadows drifted between the columns like drifting specters, and distant laughter, a child's giggle, subtle and unnatural, echoed through the void. The ground shuddered again. From the darkness came a voice, low and melodious, with an otherworldly echo. "At last, the seal undone. Who awakens me from dreams of dust?" Lily's heart froze. She recognized the accent from Kieran's grandmother's stories, Mara Seraphin's voice, twisted by centuries. The voice continued, softer now, almost tender, "Child of ash and bone, companion of dusk, why have you come?" Kieran took a cautious step forward. "Great Mara," he said, voice trembling, "I am Kieran Vale, descendant of your bloodline. I sought to learn the truth to protect our village from the darkness you contained. I meant no disrespect." A breeze carried Lily's breath away. She sensed movement at the edge of her vision, a pale hand emerging from a swirling mist, followed by another, until a form rose before them, a tall woman clothed in tattered gowns that shimmered like starlight. Her hair was silver, her skin translucent, and her eyes the same mirrored pools Lily had seen moments ago. The cat whisker scar was faint but visible on her cheek, a mark of the curse she bore. Mara Seraphin smiled, but it was a cruel twist of sorrow. "Your ancestor bound me here to guard the veil," she said, voice like wind through chimes. "Yet even in chains, I learned to dream. And in my dreams, the world beyond grows hungry." Lily felt a chill lightning through her veins. "We didn't know, we only wanted to keep you," she hesitated, "and the danger here, contained." Mara's gaze swept the courtyard, lingering on the broken rooftops and crumbling walls. "Containment is a fragile thing. A single shard of hope can break the strongest barrier. But now you stand before me. Will you bind me anew, or set me free?" As those ancient eyes bore into them, Lily and Kieran realized they stood at a crossroads. Behind Mara, the expanse of violet shadows beckoned with promises of knowledge and power and of horrors unspoken. Before them lay the world they knew, fragile and unsuspecting. Lily swallowed and spoke before fear could ration her words. "We will not let the darkness loose upon Raven's Hollow, but neither can we condemn you to eternal slumber. There must be a third path." Mara's laughter rippled like wind chimes in a storm. "Truly, child, you have the will of your lineage. Then let our bargain be struck." The air crackled with potential. Somewhere, deep in the shifting shadows, a presence stirred, awakened by the broken seal and the promise of a new dawn, for better or for worse. And as the first echoes of fate rippled through the courtyard, Lily felt the weight of the centuries settle on her shoulders. The story of Raven's Hollow would never be the same again. A brittle hush fell over the courtyard as Lily and Kieran stood before the unsealed gate. The violet glow beyond pulsed like a living heartbeat, casting their elongated shadows in shifting patterns across the broken marble. For a moment, time itself seemed to tremble, bearing witness to their bargain with the ancient spirit. Then, with a soft sigh that sounded like wind through dead leaves, Mara Seraphim lifted her translucent hand and beckoned. "Step across," she murmured, voice like silk unraveling in moonlight. "Let us see what fate has woven since my slumber began." Kieran swallowed and glanced at Lily. She nodded once, resolute. Together, they stepped past the threshold, leaving the crumbling courtyard and the safety of Raven's Hollow behind. The world beyond the Whispering Gate was not a place but a tapestry of liminal spaces woven together by threads of memory and dream. Underfoot, they found a floor of fractured stained glass, each shard glimmering with scenes of lives long past, a mother cradling a child, a blind man with a lantern, a priestess kneeling before a pillar of flame. Every step sang a new lament, echoing far too loudly in their skulls. Lily's heart pounded. "What is this place?" she whispered. Mara's form drifted ahead, silver hair trailing like stardust. "The Hall of Echoes. Here, the boundaries between then and now, between the living and the dead, are thin. It was here I wove the first seals to guard against the Nightborn horde. But those seals have weakened." Kieran knelt to touch a shard showing a warrior raising a sword against a horde of shadowy figures. The blade gleamed with runes that matched the sigils on the gate. "These are our ancestors," he said softly. "They fought to contain something terrible." Above them, archways of black stone spiraled upward, vanishing into an opalescent sky rippling with violet and indigo. Floating platforms drifted between pillars carved in the shapes of weeping angels and snarling beasts. On one distant ledge, a figure in a dark cloak gazed down, hood obscuring their face. Lily squinted. The figure's arms were bound in chains of glowing silver, and wisps of mist coiled at their feet like hungry serpents. "Who is that?" Lily asked, unease coiling in her stomach. Mara's expression darkened. "That is Korvax the Omen, once my ally, then my adversary. He was last seen here when he tried to break free from his bonds. If he's awake," her voice trailed off as the distant figure lifted a gaunt-leafed hand and pointed directly at them. A shudder coursed through the hall. The stained glass floor cracked beneath Kieran's knee, and a low throbbing filled the air. "Run!" Mara hissed. "He wakes." Lily grabbed Kieran's arm and pulled him forward. They sprinted across the shifting mosaics, shards tinkling like tortured laughter under their feet. Behind them, the archway's runes flared bright white, and a jet of inky shadow shot toward the figure on the ledge. Chains of silver snapped with high-pitched wails, and Korvax lifted his head, revealing eyes like black holes spiraling with crimson fire. Lily forced her breath into calm. "We need to find the chamber of the first seal," she shouted over the thunder of collapsing glass. "That's where we can strengthen the bindings." Kieran nodded, pale-faced but determined. He held the journal in one hand and Mara's hand in the other. "Guide us," he called. Mara held his hand, and a soft glow enveloped their tangled fingertips. She pointed to a distant corridor of obsidian arches. As they approached, the surrounding floor fragments reassembled into sturdy stone, smoothing their path. The laughter of broken memories faded, replaced by a stillness that pressed on their eardrums. At the corridor's entrance, two monumental statues rose on either side, one of a woman with outstretched arms and sorrowful eyes, the other of a lion with a fractured mane and a haunted growl frozen. Mid-roar. The runes on their pedestals matched the journal's diagrams of the first seal. Between them lay a heavy, circular door of burnished bronze, sealed by 3 concentric rings engraved with spiraling symbols. "This is it," Kieran whispered, pressing his palm against the metal. The surface rippled under his touch, as though alive. "The first seal." Lily inspected the rings. The incantation in the journal describes 3 bindings, one by memory, one by sacrifice, one by unity. She looked at Mara. "We know the memory part, your memories woven into the gate. But the sacrifice and unity, what do we need to do?" Mara's spectral form drifted forward. "To renew the seal, one must offer something dear and the other must bind themselves in solidarity. First, a memory that you hold most precious, offered willingly. Then, a vow of unity in blood or spirit." Kieran glanced at Lily. His eyes glimmered with horror and resolve. "I'll offer my memory," he said. He took a deep breath and placed the journal on the central ring. "My memory of my mother's lullaby, her last lullaby before she passed. It guided me through every shadow since." He pressed his other hand on the innermost ring, and the glass shards around them trembled, forming ripples of luminous blue. Lily's throat constricted. The choice was agonizing. Her greatest memory was the night her father taught her to sing by the hearth, his voice warm against the darkness. But she knew what had to be done. "I offer my memory, too." She stepped forward, laying her hand on the middle ring and whispering, "The memory of Dad's voice, singing me home when I was lost." The rings began to glow as both memories poured into the metal. Faint echoes of lullabies and folk songs swirled like motes of light around the statues. But the bindings were not yet complete. The final vow remained. Mara knelt beside them. "Now, Bind yourselves in unity. Offer not blood, but a pledge of your intertwined destinies. Kiran drew a small silver dagger from his belt, a family heirloom inscribed with the Vale crest. He hesitated only a heartbeat before pricking his palm with its tip. A drop of blood fell onto the outer ring, sizzling with an ember-bright spark. The bronze hissed, then warmed. Lily recoiled, watching in horrified fascination as the steel dagger scarred the metal. "My blood for the seal," Kiran whispered, wincing. Lily's breath caught. If he offered his blood, she could not be left behind. Determination flared in her chest. She pressed her own finger to the ring, letting a single bead of blood mingle with his. "Our destinies are bound," she vowed. "Together we stand against the darkness." At that moment, the statue's eyes ignited in sapphire light. The concentric rings whirled, sliding inward like tumblers in a lock. The floor trembled, and a wave of warmth pulsed through the corridor. The first seal had been renewed. But no sooner had the ring snapped into place than a deafening roar reverberated down the hall. The bronze door rattled, as though under assault. Mara's form flickered. "Korvax," she growled. "He's coming." Lily and Kiran braced themselves. From beyond the door, a shuddering crack echoed, then splintering metal. The creature they had bound for centuries was toiling to break free once more, this time into the world beyond the hall. The light around them dimmed, and shadows slithered from the cracks in the walls like living smoke. Kiran tightened his grip on Lily's hand. "We can't let him through." "No," Lily agreed, voice trembling but fierce. "We finish this now." Together, they turned to face the door. As the lock strained against Korvax's might, they prepared to fight not just with steel or spells, but with every ounce of hope and unity they possessed. The echo of their vow reverberated in their hearts. They would stand against the darkness, or they would fall united in its embrace. A final, violent lurch shook the corridor. The door's center plate buckled. Beyond it, two burning eyes pressed forward, and the roar grew into a cacophony of rage. Lily tightened her grip on the dagger Mara had given her, its blade carved from meteorite, capable of severing the ties between worlds. Beside her, Kiran whispered, "For Raven's Hollow." Lily closed her eyes only for a heartbeat, then flung the door open, plunging them into darkness and into the center of the storm they had unleashed. The winged echoes of Korvax's roar rattled the obsidian walls as Lily and Kiran plunged into the chamber beyond the fractured door. The air was thick with charged static, like the hush before a storm, and every breath felt heavy with ancient power. Before them yawned a vast hall, lit by floating braziers of violet flame that cast long, twitching shadows. At the far end, the figure of Korvax pressed against the seals they had just reforged, muscles of darkness straining against the bronze. Lily's heart thundered. She tightened her grip on the meteorite dagger Mara had bestowed. The blade's surface rippled like liquid metal, reflecting the violet flames. Kiran drew the silver dagger he'd used for the blood binding and placed it tip down in the floor, anchoring it with a whisper of warding runes. "That should hold for a moment," he panted, voice tight. but we need a way to banish him permanently. Korvax's head snapped toward them, two burning red slits in the darkness. He thrust forward, cracking the bronze door with a final groan, and spilled into the hall in a tide of shadow. The ground shook as his massive, clawed feet sank into the fractured tile. He was taller than two men, muscles coiled beneath rippling black flesh, and his wings once angelic, now charred unfurled like torn curtains of night. Lily forced herself to stand tall. "Kieran," she called. "Remember the journal?" There was something about the Bloodstar Temple, about a chant that could draw the Nightborn back into their prison. Kieran's eyes flicked to the open pages. Yes, the Song of Ashes and Atonement. But it requires instruments forged of remembrance. We need the tear harp and the raven's horn, both lost in the mortal realm. A flash of inspiration lit Lily's mind. The tear harp, that was the one Mara made from her own crystallized sorrow, stored in her hidden catacombs beneath Raven's Hollow. And the raven's horn. I found a lead in Father's map, marked at the old Dunsmuir Keep. Korvax advanced, each step bending the waxen flames into writhing shapes. The floor tiles beneath him cracked, and ghostly figures rose, trailing smoke as though conjured by his presence. Spectral soldiers, echoes of those bound by Mara's magic, dragged chains across the stone. Lily could almost hear their muted lament, a chorus of the lost. "We don't have time to retrieve those artifacts," Kieran shouted as he slashed at a ghostly soldier. His blade passed through it, leaving a ripple of ash. "We need to do something here." Lily nodded. "We'll buy time." She stabbed the dagger into the ceramic floor and closed her eyes, reaching out with the bond she and Kieran had forged. She whispered the vow they had sworn, unity through blood and memory. The dagger hummed, and a lattice of silver light spread across the tiles, forming a partial barrier around them. Korvax's roar shook the hall. He lashed out with a wing, and the barrier flickered. "Your petty bindings cannot hold me, children of mortal coil." His voice echoed with malice, drawing each word out like a curse. Kieran seized Lily's arm. "We have to lure him back to the gate room, where the seals are strongest with the combined power of the first seal." Lily nodded, planting her feet. "Lead him back, we'll keep him occupied." She drew a deep breath. "Ready?" "Always," Kieran replied, eyes blazing. They sprinted down the left corridor, spectral soldiers converging on their heels. Each twist of the dagger in the floor ignited wards that singed the wraiths to wisps of smoke, but there were always more. They turned corner after corner, arrows of violet flame arching overhead, until at last they glimpsed the great bronze door at the far end of the hall. Korvax thundered after them, the ground quaking, the specters crying out. Lily grabbed Kieran's hand. "Now." Together, they dashed through the door and nearly collided with Mara, whose form had grown dim as the Nightborn's strength increased. The courtyard beyond the shattered marble and broken rooftop lay open like a wound under the sickly moon. The whispering gate's pillars glowed softly, a steady heartbeat of power, and the runes Mara had woven flashed in time with the silver dagger's hum. Korvax burst through the portal, wings beating like thunder, filling the threshold with shadow so deep it blotted out the stars. He reared back, ready to strike, but Lily raised her dagger, forging a lattice of light that met his blow and crackled in the air. Mara's voice rang out, strong once more. Now, children, sing the Song of Ashes. Kiran opened the journal to the chant and began reciting in the ancient tongue. Words of mourning and release, of atonement and final rest, spilled from his lips. Lily joined in, her voice trembling at first, then strengthened by the echoes of every living soul in Raven's Hollow. Through the gate's crack, dust motes rose like drifting petals, swirling into the courtyard. Korvax howled, a sound of fury and pain, as the chant wrapped around him in bands of silver flame. He struck at the light, but each blow shattered into sparks that rained upon the ground. With every verse, his form flickered, alternately solid and spectral, as though the binding reclaimed parts of his being. At the climax of the chant, the final lines demanded a gift, by tears of sorrow, by blood of hope returned to shadow, no longer awake. Kiran and Lily pressed their daggers into the runic stones at their feet. A burst of radiant light surged through the gate, striking Korvax like a spear. He thrashed, wings tearing at the air, and the courtyard trembled with his struggle. Then, with a deafening crack, the pillars around the gate shattered. The violet flames flickered and died, replaced by blinding white light. Korvax let out one last roar, mouth wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth, before collapsing into himself and dissolving into a spiral of black mist that was sucked back through the gate's keystone. Arch. When the light faded, the courtyard was hushed. The broken rooftops were bathed in gentle starlight. The great gate's pillars stood cracked but intact, and the runes still glowed softly, testament to the renewed seals. Kiran sank to his knees, breathing hard. Lily collapsed beside him, trembling. Mara's form solidified before them, more vivid, her translucent wings folded gently behind her. She smiled, weary but triumphant. "You have done what none could for centuries," she said, voice soft as dawn. "You saved us all." Lily looked up, tears in her eyes. We did it together." Her gaze drifted to the runic daggers still lodged in the stone. "But at what cost? The courtyard, the castle, both will need tending." Mara nodded. "The seals hold for now, but the realms remain fragile. You have proven yourselves worthy guardians, but your journey is only beginning. The heart of Echoes still calls, and beyond lies the Bloodstar Temple. We must go there to seal the breach once and for all." Kiran extended a hand to Lily. "Then let's finish this." Lily clasped his hand, steel in her gaze. "For Raven's Hollow and for every soul caught between shadows and light." Mara floated between them, raising a hand to guide their path. As the first pale light of dawn crept over the ruined courtyard, the three of them prepared to step through the gate once more toward new trials, hidden allies, and discoveries that would test the bonds of memory, sacrifice, and unity in ways they had yet to imagine. Their story, they knew, would echo through the ages. A pale dawn light seeped through the whispering gate as Mara Seraphim guided Lily and Kieran into the Bloodstar Temple's threshold, a narrow corridor carved from obsidian and bone-white marble. The air was cool and scented with incense of strange origin, notes of night-blooming jasmine laced with something metallic, like fresh blood. Each footstep echoed, reverberating in the stillness and reminding them of the silence they had shattered the night before. "Stay close," Mara whispered, her voice like wind through hollow stone. "The temple lies at the heart of these halls, but its path shifts. Only those bound by the seals can find the true way." Lily glanced at Kieran. His silver-lined journal trembled in his hand, pages fluttering as if alive. "How will we know the right passage?" she asked. Mara smiled faintly, fingertips brushing the walls. Wherever her fingers passed, faded runes flared to life with a cool sapphire glow, illuminating hidden doorways and secret arches. "Follow the light of the first seal. It will guide us and mark the betrayals that lie beneath." They pressed onward, the corridor splitting into three paths, one flanked by statues of weeping priestesses, one lined with thorn-carved columns, and one opening onto a spiral staircase winding downward into darkness. The runes on Mara's palm pulsed brighter toward the staircase. "This way," Mara said. "But beware, the temple's guardians lie in wait." At the staircase base, the walls widened into a vast hall. Here, pillars of onyx rose like towering fingers, supporting a vaulted ceiling painted with constellations that seemed to shift as the trio watched. At the hall's center stood three enormous braziers, each burning a different flame, one crimson as fresh blood, one emerald green like poison, and one silver white like moonlight. Between them was an altar of black stone, its surface etched with the sigil of the blood star, a five-pointed star intertwined with a rose. Kieran stepped forward, tracing the sigil with a trembling finger. "This is it," he breathed. "The altar that channels the temple's power. If we can rekindle its light." A sudden hush fell. The flames guttered, wavered, then roared higher as the constellations overhead blurred into motion. The stars themselves seemed to drift, forming a doorway of celestial light above the altar. From that portal poured a chorus of haunting voices, a mingling of sighs, whispers, and keening laments. Shadows lengthened around the braziers, coalescing into figures clad in ceremonial armor, faceless warriors whose breastplates bore the crest of Raven's Hollow. Lily's heart tightened. "The temple's guardians," she whispered. "Souls bound to protect the altar." Mara inclined her head. "They test all who would claim the blood star's power. Only by proving your resolve can you rekindle the flames." One armored sentinel stepped forward, its blade drawn and held aloft. The others formed a half-circle, blades glinting in the brazier's light. Lily swallowed as they advanced, silent as falling snow. Kieran raised the journal in defense, but Mara laid a hand on his arm. "Blood and memory have forged your bond," she said. "Now you must prove your purpose." The sentinel's voice rang out, resonant and hollow, "By what right do you seek the blood star's flame? Speak, or face the trial of souls." Kiran stepped ahead, voice steady despite his pounding heart. "We seek to seal the breach that threatens Raven's Hollow. We ask not for dominion over the blood star, only its power to mend the world's wounds." A silence fell. Then, as if the air itself judged his words, the sentinel lowered its blade. "Words alone do not suffice. Prove your resolve in the trial of sacrifice." With a gesture, the sentinel pointed at the crimson brazier. Its flame surged, becoming a swirling vortex of red sparks. From its depths drifted phantasmal wolves' forms made of ember and shadow, snarling as they circled the braziers. "The trial of sacrifice demands you face your deepest fear and give something you hold dear," the sentinel intoned. "Only then will the blood star's flame be rekindled." The wolves sprang forward in unison. Lily and Kiran braced themselves. Instinctively, Lily drew the meteorite dagger, its blade humming with the light of their earlier binding. Kiran reached for his silver dagger, but the wolves evaded their strikes, passing through steel and phasing back into fiery mist. Lily dodged a lunge that sizzled past her shoulder, burning the hem of her coat. Their illusions born of the trial, she realized. The only way to defeat them is to embrace the sacrifice. Kiran's eyes widened. "You mean, give up something here in the temple?" Lily looked at the altar's black stone. "Yes. We must offer one possession that anchors us to home to prove we trust this vow." Kiran hesitated, glancing at Mara. Mara nodded gently. "Trust your bond. The temple will know your hearts." Kiran drew a simple wooden flute from his satchel. "This," he said, voice faltering. "My mother carved this when I was a child." Its melody kept her memory alive. Lily laid a comforting hand on his shoulder. "It will guide her spirit back to peace." He placed the flute on the altar. A tremor ran through the hall as the flute glowed a soft, mournful blue. The wolves hesitated, their forms flickering. Next, Lily reached into her cloak and pulled out a small locket, a silver oval containing a faded portrait of her father teaching her to sing. She slid it open and laid it beside the flute, voice barely above a whisper, "For Dad, who taught me hope." The locket's clasp clicked, and a silver light pulsed outward, weaving around the sentinel and spiraling toward the brazier. The wolves let out keening howls as red sparks turned to gentle embers and were drawn into the altar. The sentinel's blade lowered fully. "Your sacrifices are accepted. Now prove your unity." From the emerald brazier erupted vines of thorn and blossom, writhing like serpents. The hall darkened, the constellations overhead twisting into ominous shapes. The vines advanced, seeking to entangle the pair. Lily grabbed Kiran's hand. "Together," she said, recalling their blood vow. She concentrated her will, allowing the unity of their bond to flow through her. Kieran closed his eyes and whispered the vow they had exchanged, bound by blood and memory, heart and soul, as one. A gentle green glow emanated from their joined hands, spreading through their bodies like warm water. The vines recoiled, retreating to the brazier, dissolving into petals that drifted into the altar. The hall fell silent but for the humming of the silver brazier's flame. With a final flash, the brazier ignited in a brilliant white light that bathed the chamber. The celestial doorway above the altar snapped shut, and the constellations carved into the ceiling stilled. Mara stepped forward, her form radiant under the blood star's light. "You have proven yourselves," she declared. "The power of the blood star is yours to channel, but know this, power demands responsibility." Kieran wiped a tear from his cheek. "We will honor it." Lily placed her hand on his. "And with it, we will finish the seals." Mara's gaze drifted to the altar's sigil. The rose at its center glowed with renewed vitality, petals unfurling in spectral bloom. She raised her hands, summoning threads of silver light that wove a web of seals across the temple's walls, its arches, and even the courtyard stones outside. "The breach is nearly sealed," Mara intoned. "Only the heart of echoes remains. There, you will face the final guardian and your greatest trial." Kieran and Lily exchanged determined looks. The path ahead would challenge them in ways they could not yet imagine, but they knew this much: together, bound by sacrifices and vows, they would see their quest to its end. As the blood-red, emerald green, and silver-white flames merged into a single prismatic glow, the Hall of the Blood Star stood renewed, a testament to their courage, unity, and the unbreakable bonds forged in the crucible of sacrifice. And with the whispering gate's pillars humming a victorious melody, they turned to face the next corridor, hearts steeled for the trials awaiting them in the heart of echoes. A hush of pre-dawn light filtered through the cracked pillars of the whispering gate as Lily, Kieran, and Mara Seraphim emerged from the Hall of the Blood Star. Their breathing was steady, but hearts still raced from the intensity of the trials of sacrifice and unity. Beyond the courtyard lay a narrow corridor of shifting stone, its walls carved with faint impressions of faces caught between terror and hope. This was the corridor of whispers, leading onward to the heart of echoes, the final chamber of their perilous quest. "Listen," Mara murmured, her silver hair drifting like mist. "The corridor carries the voices of all who have bound themselves to these seals. Their memories will guide or mislead you." Each step they took set loose a chorus of whispers. Some voices murmured words of encouragement, "Courage, children of light," while others hissed warnings, "Turn back, for regret awaits." The voices layered over one another like tangled threads, creating a tapestry of emotion that tugged at their resolve. Kieran paused, hand pressed to his ear. "It's overwhelming. I hear my father's voice, but also the cries of those who failed before us." Lily placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. "We carry their hopes now. Let's focus on the true path, not the doubts." She closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, centering herself on the bond they shared and the sacrifices they had made. The whispers around her softened, and a faint golden rune glowed beneath her feet, an arrow pointing forward. "That way, Lily said, voice firm. They followed the rune deeper into the corridor as the walls shifted, the carved faces dissolving into runic script that pulsed with gentle light whenever they stepped correctly. But the path was not without peril. Midway through, the floor gave way beneath Kieran's foot, revealing a pit of swirling silver mist. In an instant, Lily grabbed his arm, hauling him back to safety. "Thank you," he gasped. He broke off as the mist coalesced into a spectral hand reaching upward. The whispers around them turned urgent. "Stay back," Lily warned, drawing her meteorite dagger. The hand recoiled, then pushed again, more insistently. Kieran held out the silver dagger, its blade carved with wards of starlight. The two blades met like flint and steel, and sparks of white light cascaded into the pit, calming the mist until it vanished entirely. "That was the trial of doubt," Mara explained gravely. "The corridor tests not only memory but also your willingness to save one another rather than yourself." Lily wiped sweat from her brow. "We passed. We saved each other." She looked at Kieran and smiled, though her eyes betrayed the exhaustion she felt. Beyond the pit, the corridor opened into a vast chamber known as the Chamber of Atonement. At its center floated a crystalline sphere, the echo heart suspended above an obsidian pedestal carved with the gaunt face of an ancient oracle. The sphere pulsed with every whisper from the corridor, every hope and regret, every vow and fear. It was the source of the seal's power and their greatest vulnerability. Mara drifted forward, her voice resonating through the chamber. "The echo heart holds the collective sorrow of those bound to this place. To rekindle the final seal, you must offer more than memory or blood, you must offer forgiveness." Kieran frowned. "Forgiveness? Forgive whom?" "The Nightborn. Ourselves. Those who fell before us." Mara's eyes, pools of molten silver, shone with compassion. "All of the above. The blood star sealed away the Nightborn, but it also imprisoned the spirits who once guarded this realm. They were betrayed by fear. Now they cannot rest until forgiveness releases their sorrow into light." Lily's chest tightened. "Then we must speak to them." She approached the pedestal and placed her hand on its cool surface. The echo heart glowed brighter, and the air filled with soft sobs, a choir of tortured souls. One by one, 12 ghostly figures emerged from the chamber walls, the 12 original guardians, each wearing armor etched with the faces of both lion and dove. Their eyes, empty but pleading, were fixed on Lily and Kieran. The first spirit, a stooped old woman in a crown of dried roses, stepped forward, voice hollow. "We guarded the gates. We believed ourselves the final bulwark against darkness. But when fear overtook us, we shattered the seals, and unleashed the Nightborn upon ourselves." Tears of starlight coursed down her cheek. "I forgive you," Lily said softly, approaching the spirit. She placed her hand over the ghosts, offering a silent vow of understanding. The spirit's form shimmered and dissolved into a pillar of golden light that entered the echo heart. One by one, Lily and Kieran approached each guardian, a young child whose laughter had turned to wails, a warrior whose blade had snapped in two, a priest whose prayers had gone unanswered. With each forgiveness spoken, I forgive you for your fear, I honor your courage, I release you from regret. Another spirit dissolved into luminance and fed the echo heart. Kiran's voice added warmth and sincerity, his vow echoing through the chamber, your sacrifice was not in vain. You rest in peace. As the 12th spirit accepted forgiveness, a tall figure whose helmet bore the broken crest of a raven, the echo heart collapsed inward, shrinking to a single point of white light that pulsed in time with their heartbeats. The entire chamber trembled, the obsidian floor cracking with gentle cracks. A shaft of pure light shot upward, bursting through the ceiling and piercing the open sky above. Mara's form shone with radiance. The final seal is reforged. The echo heart's sorrow has been transformed into hope. But no sooner had she spoken than the chamber's walls began to quiver. The fissures in the obsidian widened, and from each crack spilled a viscous black liquid, a corruption born of the Nightborn's ancient hatred. The liquid pooled around the pedestal, hissing as it dissolved the crystal shards that had once formed the sphere. Kiran's eyes widened. The breach, it's tearing apart the chamber. Mara's expression hardened. The heart of echoes can be destroyed if its core is not immediately anchored to the mortal realm. Lily nodded, understanding dawning. We have to place something of our very selves into it, an extension of our souls, to bind it permanently. Without hesitation, she drew forth the small rose she had carried since first entering Mara's realm, a rose she had pressed between pages of her journal, symbolizing her hope for renewal. She pressed its petals onto the pedestal, and the rose transformed into a phantom bloom of argent light that merged with the echo heart's core. Simultaneously, Kiran placed his hand upon Lily's, their joined blood oath now poured into the fissures. Their will, their memories, their very souls flowed through the cracks, sealing them with threads of pure silver light. A blinding flash erupted as the corrupted liquid recoiled, evaporating into a fine mist that dissipated into the air. The obsidian walls smoothed, and the chamber stood pristine once more, its silent testament to sacrifice, forgiveness, and unity. Above them, the shaft of light widened until it filled the chamber with dawn's golden glow. Mara knelt before the echo heart, now resting as a perfect crystal orb on its pedestal. The seals are complete, she whispered. The Nightborn are banished, and the echo heart is safe. Raven's Hollow is free. Lily and Kiran exchanged weary but joyous smiles. They had faced ancient betrayal, spectral trials, and the abyss of regret, and emerged victorious together. Mara rose, her form glowing like morning mist. Return now, guardians of the seals. Your journey has forged new legends, as the old ones are laid to rest. The whispers of the chamber faded into a gentle hum, and the trio retraced their steps through the corridor of whispers, now silent and still. When they stepped back into the broken courtyard, the first rays of sun crowned the whispering gate in gold. The pillars, once cracked and pitted, stood whole again, runes glowing softly with life. Kiran turned to Lily, voice thick with emotion. We did it, Lily. We really did it. Lily took his hand, her smile radiant. Together, always. As they walked away from the gate toward the world they had saved, the names of their ancestors and their own echoed in the wind, carried on whispered blessings rather than fearful warnings. The story of Raven's Hollow would live on, not as a tale of terror, but as a testament to hope, unity, and the power of redemption. The sun had risen high over Raven's Hollow by the time Lily and Kieran stepped away from the whispering gate, their feet crunching over the dew-kissed grass of the courtyard. The village lay before them like a tapestry waking from a long nightmare. Rooftops glowed with new warmth, smoke curled lazily from chimneys, and children's laughter drifted on the breeze. For a moment, relief washed over them so completely that Lily closed her eyes and let herself imagine a life untouched by shadows. But Mara Seraphine's presence beside them reminded her that even victories carried their own burdens. The spectral guardian drifted silently, her robes billowing as though caught in an otherworldly breeze. Although the gates were sealed and the ancient wards restored, Mara's eyes held a note of solemn purpose. The journey was not yet done. "You have earned the right to return home," Mara said, her voice like morning bells. "But before you settle, there remains one task, to heal the wounds left by the breach. Magic madness still lingers in the old forest, corrupting its wildlife, twisting trees, and poisoning springs." Lily opened her eyes at the mention of the forest. She had heard stories of the old wood's edge bleeding black sap and of animals driven mad by whispers no human could hear. "How do we begin to cleanse it?" she asked. Mara pointed to the horizon, where gnarled trunks rose like a dark spine against the sky. "Within the heart of that forest stands the withered oak, the first tree planted by your ancestors when Raven's Hollow was founded. Its roots once nourished the land's magic, now they have absorbed the Nightborn's corruption. You must perform the rite of renewal there, offering it pure water from the crystal spring and the blood of the land's first guardian, my own, as descendant of the Sky People." Kieran's hand tightened on Lily's. "Then let us go. The sooner we finish, the sooner peace will truly return." They set out along the village road, villagers pausing in doorways to bow their heads or offer words of thanks. Some children ran ahead, curious eyes following the trio's solemn procession. The path quickly narrowed into uneven stones, then dissolved entirely into the leaf-strewn floor of the ancient forest. As they crossed its threshold, the air grew thick and damp, birdsong fell silent, and the only sound was the rustle of dead leaves underfoot. "Stay close," Lily warned, drawing her meteorite dagger not for combat but for clarity, the blade's shimmer dispelling murky shadows. Kieran held the journal and the silver dagger, its runes still glowing faintly from their trials. Mara glided at their side, her presence a tether to sanity amid the forest's hush. Deeper in, they encountered twisted brambles that seemed to writhe toward them, black thorns soaked in tainted sap. Where Lily stepped, the grass withered in brown patches. Kieran paused at a fallen stag, its eyes glassy, antlers entangled in brambles. He knelt beside it and gently pressed his dagger's pommel into the earth, murmuring a healing charm taught by Mara. A faint pulse of silver light spread outward, loosening the brambles. The stag blinked, lifted its head, and bounded away into the gloom. Mara smiled. Even small acts of kindness help. The forest remembers every kindness you bestow upon it. At last they reached a clearing dominated by a colossal oak whose bark was gray and cracked, its leaves brittle and curled. Dark veins of corruption coursed down its trunk. Ravaged roots loomed above ground like the limbs of a blind giant. Beneath its canopy gurgled a small pool, the crystal spring now murky with silt and filth. Lily knelt by the spring, fishing from her satchel a crystal vial once filled with pure water drawn from a mountain glen. She uncorked it, letting clear droplets merge with the murky pool. The water swirled, strands of emerald light expanding outward, purifying the surface. Kiran poured a second vial, water blessed by the villagers, then raised his hand. "Now, Mara's blood," he called. Mara's form shimmered, she extended a delicate finger, touching her palm to the spring. Tiny droplets of silver fluid seeped into the water, sending luminous ripples across the pool. The sickly scent of rot faded, replaced by a scent of moss and new growth. A tremor shook the oak, and a low groan resonated through the clearing as if the tree itself sighed in relief. "It is nearly done," Mara intoned. "But a final step remains, the spoken vow of the land." She placed her hand on Kiran's shoulder, then on Lily's. "Speak the words with true hearts, by blade and blood, by memory and love, we renew the bond between land and life. Let corruption fall, and let this place flourish." Hand in hand, Lily and Kiran repeated the vow. Their voices rose together, harmonizing in the sacred clearing. As they spoke, the ground beneath the roots glowed in veins of gold and green. The withered oak's trunk began to shimmer, bark softening, cracks knitting closed. Leaves unfurled, shooting forth new bright foliage, and the corrupted veins receded. Birds erupted in song from the newly healed branches. Kiran knelt and pressed his dagger into the earth at the oak's base. Lily joined him, blade tip touching his. A hum of resonant magic thrummed through the forest, binding their essence to the land. Mara stepped back, her face shining with gratitude and pride. "You have done what few mortals can," she said softly. "The forest is saved once more, and Raven's Hollow will prosper." Lily stood, brushing soil from her coat. "Thank you, Mara, for everything. What will become of you now?" Mara's silver hair caught a stray ray of sunlight. "My purpose is fulfilled here. I will remain as the spirit of the withered oak, protector of this land. But I will watch over Raven's Hollow always." Tears pricked Lily's eyes. "You will never be forgotten." Mara inclined her head, then drifted upward into the branches of the oak, her form dissolving into motes of silver light that sprinkled down like morning dew. The forest seemed to exhale, sunlight scattered through the leaves in glittering patterns that danced across Lily and Kiran's faces. They stood alone in the clearing for a moment, absorbing the peace that settled around them. Then Lily reached for Kiran's hand. "Come on," she said with a tired smile. "Let's go home." Their journey back to the village was eased by the now friendly forest. Deer peered from behind ferns, birds flitted between branches, and the path was lined with blossoms bursting from once barren. Earth. When they emerged again into Raven's Hollow, the villagers greeted them as heroes. Children lifted them onto shoulders, elders offered cakes and tea, and laughter filled the air once more. That evening, under a sky free of ominous clouds, Lily and Kieran sat on a hill overlooking the village. Lanterns glowed in windows, and the whispering gate's pillars shimmered faintly in the distance, a constant reminder of the trials they had endured. Kieran leaned his head on Lily's shoulder, journal open but pages resting. "We should record everything," he murmured, "so that future generations know the true story, not just of fear, but of hope and unity." Lily nodded, pens poised over her notebook. "And so that no one ever breaks these seals again." Between them, a new chapter of Raven's Hollow's history began, one of healing, remembrance, and the unbreakable bonds forged by sacrifice. They knew peace would not always last, for darkness stirs even in the brightest places. But they also knew this, as long as they stood together, guided by memory and bound by love, Raven's Hollow would endure through the ages. The dawn after the rite of renewal brought a fragile stillness to Raven's Hollow. Mist curled along the cobblestone streets, and a soft amber light spilled from lanterns hung by every threshold. Yet beneath the veneer of peace, a tension lingered, as though the village itself held its breath in anticipation of some distant echo. Lily and Kieran walked side by side toward the village square, their steps measured, eyes alert. Though Mara's blessings had restored the forest, rumors of strange sightings and half-heard whispers were already stirring among the villagers, and Lily sensed that their work was far from over. As they rounded the corner by old Marta's bakery, they found a small crowd gathered around the ancient well. At its edge stood Mayor Thorne, a stout man whose usual cheer had been replaced by a grim frown. Beside him knelt two guards, examining the water's surface with uneasy glances. "The spring still speaks," the mayor said when he saw Lily and Kieran approaching. "But it's different. The water's clear, yes, but I heard voices this morning, soft, urgent, pleading voices coming from the well's depths." Kieran exchanged a look with Lily. "The Echo Heart's power should have sealed those voices for good," he said. "Unless..." Lily peered into the well. The water was still, perfectly reflecting the smoke-blue sky above. She closed her eyes, reaching out with her senses. Beneath the mirror of water, a faint pulse echoed, not the calm heartbeat of a healed land, but a rapid, anxious tapping, as though something trapped was trying to communicate. She felt a chill at the base of her spine. "Something's trapped down there," she whispered. "Not a spirit like before, but something, alive." The guards shifted uneasily. "We heard splashes last night. Thought it was the wind at first, but then, a low moan, like someone in pain." Mayor Thorne ran a hand through his graying hair. "We need to know what it is before more villagers fall into panic." Lily nodded, turning to Kieran. "We should investigate, but carefully. It might be a remnant of corruption or something else Mara didn't foresee." Kieran retrieved his silver dagger and touched it to the well's rim. "Let's see if a ward will illuminate what's under the surface." He recited a fragment of the Song of Ashes and Atonement, his words weaving a ring of pale light around the well's opening. The water glowed, and through its depths they saw a figure curled at the bottom, pale-skinned, with long dark hair drifting like seaweed, limbs unnaturally long and slender. Lily gasped. "It's not human, but it's her." The figure pressed a hand against the glassy barrier of water, leaving a smear of dark blood that trailed down into the depths. Its eyes luminescent silver blinked slowly, and its lips parted in a silent plea. Mayor Thorne swallowed. "It looks like one of the Nightborn's lesser kin. A wraith child, perhaps. Are they all corrupted?" Kieran shook his head. "Not necessarily. If this was born of the breach too late, it might be a new creature, orphaned by the ceiling. We have to decide, do we rescue it? Or condemn it?" Lily's heart clenched at the childlike shape. "We can't just leave it down there to rot. If it's sentient, we owe it mercy." She turned to the villagers, who watched in fearful silence. "Gather buckets of pure water from the crystal spring, and fetch the tear harp's shards from the village archives. We'll need both to draw it up safely." While the villagers obeyed, Lily and Kieran hurried back to old Marta's bakery, where the shards of Mara's tear harp were stored beneath ancient floorboards. Marta herself emerged, clutching her shawl, and handed them a small wooden box containing the harp's fragmented crystal strings. "Be careful," she warned, her voice trembling. "That harp once held the sorrow of spirits. Be mindful what you awaken." With buckets of spring water and harp shards in hand, Lily led the way back to the well. She took a shard in her left hand and placed it against the water's surface, then plucked with her right fingers, causing a single note to reverberate, a pure, quavering lament that rippled through the air. Kieran pressed the silver dagger's hilt to the rim, reciting a simple binding charm of compassion and safety. The water began to swirl, lifting the wraith child upward as though drawn by the melody. It rose slowly, haloed by pale blue light, until its body broke the surface. Lily knelt and gently scooped the creature up, cradling it in wet arms. Its sobbing breaths were low gurgles, but the note of relief in its eyes was unmistakable. "SHH, you're safe," Lily whispered, carrying it to a waiting wooden trough lined with moss. Kieran poured fresh spring water over its limbs, cleansing away corruption. The villagers watched, some wavering between horror and wonder as the wraith child's form solidified, limbs regaining their proper proportion, hair settling like silk. Moments later, the girl or boy stood and looked around with dazed eyes. Under the soft morning light, they appeared no more than 12 years old, wearing a tattered white tunic embroidered with arcane sigils. Their silver eyes flicked to Lily and Kieran, and they whispered a single word, "Home." Lily exchanged a glance with Kieran. "Yes," she said gently. "We'll find out where you belong." Mayor Thorne stepped forward. "We'll give you shelter until we learn more." He reached out a hand. The wraith child took it cautiously. The villagers murmured in relief. Lily knelt beside Kieran. That answers one question, but raises another: where did this child come from? If they were born of the breach's last gasp, perhaps there are more or something else lurking beneath Raven's hollow. Kieran frowned. And what do we do with them now? If they're tied to this realm, they may bring danger, or be the key to understanding remnants of Nightborn magic. Lily placed a hand on his shoulder. We'll treat them with kindness first. Then we'll learn what we must together. Later that afternoon, as the villagers tended to repairs around the well and choir bells rang in renewed celebration, Lily and Kieran sat with the wraith child in the village's small infirmary. They offered warm broth and soft blankets, and the child, whose name they learned was Syl, nodded gratefully. Syl's voice, when it came, was soft as wind through chimes. My name is Syl. I remember drifting, like a leaf in a storm. I thought I was lost forever. Lily smiled. You're not lost anymore. We'll help you find your place. Kieran opened his journal. Syl, do you remember anything about before the well? About a home, family, anything? Syl shook their head, pale hair falling over silver eyes. Only fragments, shadows of a courtyard, a gate, voices chanting. Then darkness. Kieran's eyes widened. A courtyard and a gate, that sounds like Mara's realm. You might have been there when the breach closed. Lily's pulse quickened. If Syl was caught between worlds when the seal snapped shut, it could explain why they're part Nightborn and part child of the living. We need to learn more. Mayor Thorne reappeared at the door. I've spoken with Marta and Father Abram in the chapel. They can offer shelter and counsel. But I must ask you both, will you stay? The village wants you to lead, to guide us through rebuilding what was broken. Lily exchanged a glance with Kieran. Neither had expected to be called leaders, but neither could refuse. Lily stood, smoothing her damp hair. We'll stay as long as we're needed. And we'll make sure Raven's Hollow heals fully. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in ribbons of rose and gold, Lily, Kieran, and Syl stepped out into the village square. Lanterns were lit, music swelled, and for the first time in generations, Raven's Hollow celebrated hope rather than fear. But beneath the laughter, Lily's mind swirled with questions, of Syl's origins, of lingering shadows in the well, and of what unseen forces still watched from the edge of the forest. Yet for now, as villagers danced beneath lantern light and Syl's laughter joined theirs, Lily allowed herself a moment of quiet joy. The chapters of their story were far from over, and even as one mystery gave way to another, they faced the future together, bound by memory, sacrifice, and the unbreakable ties of hope. Morning light filtered through the stained glass windows of Raven's Hollow Chapel, painting the stone floor in fractured hues of rose and sapphire. Lily stood at the threshold, watching as Father Abram lit candles along the nave, their flames flickering in time with her heartbeat. Beside her, Kieran heft his satchel, where the journal and the silver dagger rested. And close by, Syl, no longer the raped child of the well but a living girl of uncanny grace, clutched a folded sketch of a courtyard and gate, the only memento she had from before. "Are you ready?" Lily whispered, slipping her hand into Syl's. The girl nodded, eyes bright with a mixture of fear and fierce determination. Outside, the village buzzed with renewed life. Farmers led livestock home, merchants arranged fresh produce on stalls, and laughter echoed down the streets. Yet beneath the bustle lay an undercurrent of unease. Whispers still curled through taverns and hearthrooms alike, questions of Syl's origin, rumors of lingering magic beneath the village, and tales of silent watchers at the forest's fringe. Father Abram cleared his throat, voice soft but steady. "The council has agreed. You three shall journey to the moonlit grove to seek the dream walker. It is said she communes with those caught between worlds, and Syl's existence surely spans both. Only the dream walker can help her remember who she truly is, and whether she carries a purpose beyond these seals you reforged." Lily bowed her head. "We will depart at once." As they stepped into the sunlight, Mara's blessing seemed to echo in the warmth against their skin. Though Mara had merged with the withered oak, Lily sometimes sensed her presence in the rustle of leaves or the sudden glow of a bird's plumage. Today, Lily carried that hope like a talisman. They followed the old forest path northward, one edge still lush and green, the other where the corruption had once seeped, now healed but haunted by faint echo whispers. Syl walked between Lily and Kieran, sketchbook and charcoal in hand, drawing the world as they passed, the new blossoms on the oak, the moss-carpeted stones, the silvery light dancing on fractured runes embedded in the ancient paving. By midday they reached the moonlit grove, a circle of ancient yew trees whose branches intertwined overhead to form a natural dome. At its center lay a shallow pool of water so still it mirrored the sky, even though no sunbeam penetrated its canopy. A soft, violet glow emanated from lanterns hung on low branches, lanterns that had never burned before. "There," Kieran murmured, pointing to a slight figure kneeling by the pool's edge. Cloaked in indigo robes embroidered with silver threads, the dream walker gathered water in a crystal chalice and murmured words that rose and fell like a lullaby. Syl took a hesitant step forward. "Excuse me," her voice quavered. The dream walker rose gracefully, blue-black hair cascading like a waterfall of night. "Child of twilight," the dream walker said, voice lilting like moonlight on water. She brushed Syl's hair back and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I have awaited you. The veil between your past and present is thin, but the fragments you carry will guide you home." Lily and Kieran exchanged relieved glances. "We hope you can help her remember," Lily said. "She found herself in the well when we reforged the seals. We believe her origin is tied to what we awakened." The dream walker nodded, eyes thoughtful. "Place your hand upon the pool, Syl, and gaze into its depths. Let its reflection show you the shape of your soul." Syl knelt and dipped her fingers into the cool water. The surface shimmered, and for a moment, she gazed at her own reflection. Then the image shifted, a vast courtyard bathed in silver moonlight, a colossal gate carved with serpents and stars, a younger version of herself, bright-eyed, reaching toward a masked woman whose face was forever half in shadow. Syl gasped, and the image vanished. Tears welled in her eyes. "That's me, but I don't remember her." The dreamwalker retrieved a small vial of iridescent oil. "Anoint your skin with this so the pool's memory can speak to both your heart and flesh." Syl opened the vial and gently dabbed oil on her temples. Immediately, her eyes fluttered, a soft whisper emerged, as though the wind itself spoke. A voice warm, motherly, yet tinged with sorrow whispered, "My child, forgive me." Syl's eyes filled with tears. Lily knelt beside her. "Syl, can you understand?" Syl's voice was distant, layered with echoes. "I was hidden to protect me. She was the one who bound me between worlds and in doing so, took my memories. I think she is part of me, but broken." Kieran frowned. Who is she?" Syl raised her gaze, eyes bright silver. "The masked guardian Mara once spoke of her in journal fragments. She was the first warden of the gate, tasked with guiding those born of the breach. But when the Nightborn struck, she shattered her mask and hid her face, taking her memories into hiding so the enemy could not find her. I am her, or a fragment of her soul." Lily's breath caught. "So you are both Wraith and Guardian Syl, the masked guardian's daughter, or embodiment." Syl wiped her cheek. "And that is why I was drawn to the gate's echo when the seal broke. The dream of ruin called me, but now, with the seals reforged, I am incomplete." The dreamwalker closed her eyes, hands weaving patterns in the air as threads of silver light unspooled from her fingertips. "Then you must reclaim your essence. To do so, you must step through the gate once more alongside these two who bound and healed this realm. Syl, child of moon and shadow, remember the incantation of the first seal, by starlight's grace and serpent's gaze, I bind my past to guard these days. Speak it at the gate's threshold." Syl nodded, shoulders trembling but determined. The dreamwalker guided them back through the forest, leaving lanterns glowing softly in their wake. As twilight fell, they reached the Whispering Gate. Its pillars still bore scars of the ancient battle, but the runes glowed with renewed strength. Syl took a trembling breath, stepping forward. Lily and Kieran flanked her, daggers in hand. By starlight's grace and serpent's gaze, I bind my past to guard these days." As the words left her lips, a wind swirled around the gate, lifting Syl's hair in a halo of silver. The air pulsed with power, and a fragment of a mask carved from starlit obsidian rose from the earth, spinning until it hovered before Syl's face. Slowly, the mask settled, merging with her features, sealing itself as part of her. Syl gasped, hand touching the smooth surface of the mask as a flood of memories poured in, laughter in moonlit courtyards, the secret rituals of the masked guardian, the fear and hope that had driven her to shatter her own identity. Her posture straightened, her eyes shone with ancient wisdom reborn. "I remember," she whispered. I am the masked guardian reborn, and now I choose to remain unmasked, but whole. A ripple of energy coursed through the gate's pillars. The runes flared brighter, and a chorus of soft bells, echoes of the guardian's shield, rang through the night air. Lily and Kieran watched in awe as Syl's form glowed, the cracked mask becoming a symbol of her reclaimed power. Syl looked at her hands, then at her companions. "Thank you for seeing me as more than a child of the breach. I will guard this gate with my full self now and walk among your village as both protector and friend." Lily stepped forward and embraced her. "Welcome home, Syl." Kieran bowed respectfully. "We are honored to stand by you." Above them, the whispering gate hummed with the renewed blessing of three guardians, Lily, Kieran, and Syl. And as the lanterns of Raven's Hollow glowed in the distance, the three friends turned toward the village, united by memory and magic, ready to face whatever new chapters fate might unfold. A week had passed since Syl reclaimed her mask and reclaimed her place as Raven's Hollow's guardian, and the village was alive with preparations for the ceremony of renewal, a festival born of both gratitude and hope. Lanterns of crimson and silver swung from every rooftop, stalls were stacked with honeyed apple tarts, spiced cider, and wreaths of fresh yew boughs, and laughter wove through the cottage-lined lanes like a warm breeze. Everywhere Lily and Kieran looked, families gathered to offer thanks to the spirits of forest and gate, while Syl moved among them with quiet dignity, blessing each child with a touch of her mask's cool stone. Yet beneath the festive veneer, an undercurrent of concern trembled. Reports had come from the far edge of the withered oak's grove, trees twisted overnight into impossible shapes, thorns dripping with an oily black sap, lantern light turned sickly green if held too long, and once lively songbirds had fallen silent, their feathers dropping like ash. Even the healed well had begun to murmur strange notes at midnight, as though some new echo was stirring below. That evening, just as the festival's bonfires ignited in the village square, Mayor Thorne summoned Lily, Kieran, and Syl to the gatehouse. Inside the wide-arched hall, Captain Marrow and two scarred scouts waited, their faces grave. "Apologies for the summons so late," Marrow said, voice low. "But we intercepted these tracks near the old quarry, 4 figures, wearing hoods embroidered with a serpent's head. They carried lanterns and sacks of soil black earth that glowed faintly in the moonlight." He laid out a length of woven cord marked with footprints. "They went toward the forest's heart." Lily frowned. A serpent's head, that symbol was in Mara's first seal, but inverted. Could someone be trying to undo what we've done? Syl's mask crown of obsidian caught the firelight as she leaned close. The inverted serpent Korvax bore that mark, but those who serve the Nightborn sometimes adopt twisted versions of our wards. If they gather corrupted earth from the grove and mix it with moon water, they could reopen fissures in the seals. Kieran's hand tightened on his dagger. They wouldn't dare attempt it during renewal. The festival's magic is strongest tonight. He looked to Lily. But that also means the seals are at their most potent. They want to subvert that strength. Lily nodded decisively. Then we must follow them to the quarry and stop them before they perform whatever ritual they plan. Syl, can you sense their path through the gate's echoes? Syl closed her eyes, fingertips brushing the rune-inscribed sill of the gatehouse window. A faint hum thrummed beneath her fingertips, growing in clarity, voices chanting in a language older than any living tongue, interwoven with the scrape of metal on stone and the rustle of wind through dead leaves. They've already begun, Syl said softly. Hear how they chant, serpent's fang, moon's dread, break the bond of star and seed. They're calling on a curse that targets the roots of the first seal. Lily drew a deep breath. Then we move at once. She turned to Marrow. Gather your scouts, 4 men at most. We'll leave by the back gate. Moments later, Lily, Kieran, Syl, and Captain Marrow slipped through the moonlit streets, lanterns swaying at their sides. The festival's laughter faded behind them, replaced by the muted sound of their boots on cobblestones and the soft call of night insects. At the forest's edge, Syl's eyes glowed faintly silver as she placed a hand on a gnarled trunk. This way, she murmured, and the trees seemed to part before them like reverent spectators. They followed a narrow path through brambles until they reached the old quarry, a circular pit ringed by towering stone walls, half collapsed in places, vines cascading like black waterfalls. In the center lay a low altar of limestone, stained with dried blood and etched with that inverted serpent. Before it stood 4 figures in hooded robes, their faces hidden in shadow. Lantern light danced on the soil-filled sacks at their feet. One raised a pale hand, dripping with muddy earth, and scattered it into a shallow basin carved at the altar's base. A low chant began, voices rising in unison. Fang of night, grasp the star. Bind the heart of gate afar. Lily slid a finger under her chin. They're mixing corrupted soil with moon water from their lanterns. Their lanterns must hold water drawn from Syl's grove pool under a new moon. She looked to Kieran. We need to break their circle before they complete the chant's final verse. Kieran nodded, and Syl stepped forward. I'll disrupt the ritual. My mask can reflect light back into their lanterns, cleansing the moon water. She removed the mask, placing it on the altar's central stone. The rune-inscribed surface and the mask's glossy obsidian face began to pulse together, sending threads of silver luminescence into the night air. The robed figures hissed in surprise. One spun to face Syl, revealing eyes red as coals and fangs glinting in the lantern light. You. Guardian reborn. You shall die for your betrayal. Lily seized her dagger. We can't let them finish attack on my mark. She signaled Marrow's scouts, who sprang from their cover with drawn blades. Marrow's men charged down the quarry's sloping ground, swords clashing against steel staffs. The robed cultists fought back with savage precision, chanting their curse even as they parried blows. Kieran darted forward, plunging his silver dagger into the soil basin and shattering it. A geyser of black water erupted, hissing as it met the air. Syl seized the mask and held it aloft, tilting it toward the shattered basin. Moonlight caught its facets and refracted into brilliant shafts of white that sliced through the poisoned water, turning it to harmless mist. The chanting faltered. One cultist hurled a dagger towards Syl, but Lily leapt between them, her meteorite blade catching the steel mid-flight. Sparks rained, and the blade shattered on her dagger's edge. Across the quarry, Marrow's scouts battled valiantly, pressing the cultists back toward the altar. Kieran lunged at the leader, forcing him to his knees in the dark soil. Syl raised the mask and intoned in the seal's tongue, "By star's grace and serpent's gaze, banish this blight from nights and days." The mask glowed fiercely, and a wave of silver light swept over the quarry floor, burning through the corrupted soil and cleansing the earth beneath their feet. The cultists shrieked and collapsed as the light passed over them. When it faded, they lay unconscious, robes singed. The altar's inverted serpent runes flaked away like brittle bark, leaving only clean limestone beneath. Panting, Lily sheathed her dagger and rushed to Syl's side. "Are you all right?" Syl placed the mask back on her face, its obsidian surface warm against her skin. "I am. The corruption is gone and the balance restored." She looked around at the fallen cultists. They acted out of grief, twisted by fear. "We should spare them, let them awake without the blight's sway." Captain Marrow lowered his sword. "By your leave, Lady Syl," he asked respectfully. Syl inclined her head, and Marrow signaled his scouts to stand down. Kieran knelt to inspect the sacks of soil. "We'll gather these and bury them beneath the withered oak. Let the land consume what was once poisoned." Lily nodded, relief flooding her. "Then let's finish this ritual properly." She retrieved a wooden chalice filled with fresh forest water, and Syl dipped the mask's edge into it, letting droplets run down onto the stones of the altar. A soft hum rose from the quartz-veined walls, and tiny motes of light drifted upward, weaving a protective web of runes around the quarry. As the last flicker of ritual light faded, the moon slipped behind a bank of clouds, and the quarry was cloaked in gentle shadow. Lily, Kieran, and Syl exchanged weary smiles, the adrenaline of battle receding into quiet triumph. "We've protected the seals twice now," Lily said softly. "But this tells us our work is never done." Syl rested a hand on Lily's shoulder. "As guardian, I will keep watch here. Raven's Hollow sleeps safely tonight." Kieran sheathed his dagger and looked to the village beyond. "And we will stand ready for whatever comes next." Under the watchful gaze of the Whispering Gate's distant pillars, the three friends retraced their steps through the forest, the echoes of their victory carried on the night wind. Raven's Hollow would celebrate another dawn, but Lily knew the true celebration lay in each moment they chose courage over fear and in the unbroken bond that would guide them through every chapter yet unwritten. The dawn after the quarry's cleansing arrived in a golden haze, painting the rooftops of Raven's Hollow with promise. Lily awoke to the soft coo of doves outside her window and the distant tinkle of festival bells that still rang, celebrating renewal even after the late-night confrontation. Yet as she dressed and gathered her daggers and journal, a quiet tension shook her shoulders, the sense that their victory, however decisive, had only scratched the surface of a deeper truth. By the time she met Kieran and Syl at the village square, the three friends were joined by Mayor Thorne, Father Abram, and Captain Marrow. The air smelled of fresh bread and pine garlands, but even the innkeeper's bright welcome was tinged with urgency. "I'm afraid we have more trouble," the mayor said, voice low. "This morning, at the edge of the withered oaks grove, the guards found strange markings carved into the living bark, runes of binding, but warped. And several scouts reported seeing someone cloaked in white, drawing water from the well near dawn." Syl's mask crest glimmered in the morning light. If someone is gathering moon water again, they could rally the cultists for a larger ritual, or worse, tap into a different power. "We can't wait." She raised her voice so the others could hear. "We need to follow those marks before the forest begins to forget its own healing." Kieran opened his journal to a page of sketches, the corrupted runes, inverted serpents, and the new glyphs carved into the oak's trunk. "These new runes borrow from both first and third seal patterns," he observed. "It's as if someone is weaving our protections into a trap for themselves." Father Abram nodded gravely. "I've studied old texts. When warding runes are inverted or cross-stitched together, they can be used to harvest the very magic meant to protect. We may be facing a rogue druid or scholar who seeks to harness the Nightborn's power for personal gain or revenge. Then we must go to the withered oak at once," Lily said, drawing her meteorite dagger. "Marrow, gather a small guard. We'll track whoever defaced the oak and see what they intend." They set out along the forest path, Syl leading them through the trees still shimmering from Mara's blessing. Birds flitted among branches newly revived, and a carpet of violet wildflowers cushioned their steps. But as they approached the clearing around the withered oak, an uneasy silence fell, the kind that presses on the ears like a held breath. At the oak's base, the corrupted runes crawled in a ring around the trunk, the bark blistered and smoking where the marks had been carved. Fresh footprints, too large for a villager's boot and too neat for an animal, led deeper into the forest. Kieran knelt to examine them. These belonged to someone with a wooden staff, the crook end embedded with a small crystal. "A staff like the one a druid might carry," Syl murmured. She placed a hand on the oak's roots. "The blood of the land still hums here. Whoever did this, did it under cover of night, perhaps to avoid detection. But they did not fear us enough to hide entirely." Lily scanned the forest edge. "We follow the footprints. Move quietly. We don't know if they'll welcome our approach." They stalked through ferns and fallen logs, the path turning upward toward a ridge where the trees grew gnarled and windblown. A pale mist clung to the ground, and the scent of lavender hung unexpectedly in the air. At the ridge crest, they found a shallow cave mouth framed by moss and ivy. Inside, lantern light flickered against the walls, and a loose spiral of chanting drifted out, words of power that curled like smoke around the trees. Syl placed her palm on the cave entrance, eyes closed. When she opened them, they shone like polished silver. It's the voice of old, a ritual of binding and unbinding. They're calling on a spirit beyond the seals. If they summon it fully, they could tear open a new breach. Lily drew a breath. We must interrupt the ritual. On my mark, Syl, extinguish their lanterns with the mask. Kiran, prepare the binding wards. They slipped into the cave. The chamber widened to reveal a natural altar of limestone. Before it knelt a figure clad in white, long hair gleaming like spun silver, carving new runes into the stone with a dagger's tip. 3 others in dark robes circled him, their heads bowed as they poured water from 6 lanterns onto the altar. The water hissed and steamed as it touched the carved glyphs. The leader's white cloak unfurled with each stroke, revealing a pattern of stars stitched along the hem, the same constellations Mara had traced in the Hall of Echoes. He spoke in the ancient tongue, by moon's lament and star's remorse, I call forth the dream of endless night. Tear open the veil, let darkness reign. Lily stepped forward, voice firm. Stop this at once. The chanting halted. The leader whirled, face pale but determined, eyes burning with fanaticism. You dare interrupt the right of reclamation. I am Alaric Brine, exiled scholar of the old orders. I will reclaim what was lost when your meddling sealed the Nightborn away. I will master the power that was stolen from us. Kiran advanced, drawing his silver dagger and etching a quick ward on the cave floor. Power that was stolen. We freed Raven's Hollow from corruption. You only seek vengeance for a bygone era. Alaric laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. You speak of peace yet you cage power you cannot comprehend. I will teach you humility. He raised his staff, the crystal atop it glowing blood red. He slammed it against the altar, and the carved runes blazed with searing fire. Syl stepped between Lily and Alaric, lifting her mask. Waves of moonlight pulsed from its surface, and the lantern flames guttered and died. The chamber plunged into darkness lit only by Alaric's red crystal. Binding wards, Kiran called, chanting swiftly. Silver lines glowed on the cave stones, forming a lattice that crept toward the altar. But Alaric thrust his staff downward, shattering part of the lattice with a pulse of dark energy. Lily lunged, knife aimed at Alaric's wrist, but he spun, the white cloak trailing like a specter. The staff slammed into her dagger's hilt, knocking her off balance. You guardians are too late to stop me, he hissed. The dream of endless night is rising. Kiran sprang to Lily's side, placing his dagger's blade against Alaric's staff. Sparks of silver and red danced as the two magics met. Not if we bind it ourselves, he shouted, reciting the Song of Ashes once more. Runes ignited under their feet, and the lattice of light leapt forward, seizing the crystal atop the staff. Alaric screamed, staggering back. Dark tendrils of shadow snaked from the broken crystal, writhing toward the cave ceiling. The chanting cultists, roused from their trance, fell to their knees, fear in their eyes. Syl seized the chance, she hurled her mask forward, aiming at the staff's crystal. The mask struck it true, shattering the red gem into shards of black glass. A thunderous roar rattled the chamber as the broken crystal exploded in a storm of jagged light. The runes on the altar crumbled, and the lattice of silver wards surged outward, washing through the cave in luminous waves. The chanting cultists screamed as bonds of light wrapped around them, dragging them to the floor unconscious. Lily caught her breath, wiping sweat from her brow. "Is it over?" she panted. Syl retrieved the mask, now streaked with smoke. "The threat is quelled for now." She looked at Alaric, who lay slumped against the altar, his white cloak singed. His eyes flicked open and locked on hers. But his vision did not die with him. Alaric's voice was hoarse. "You think you've won. The dream of endless night is no mere curse, it is a reflection of your own fear. You cannot seal away what you refuse to face." Before they could reply, a tremor shook the cavern. The broken crystal's explosion had cracked the ceiling, and dust rained down in motes. Through the fissure, a dim, greenish glow seeped, a light no dawn should bear. Kieran scrambled to his feet. "What is that?" Lily stared upward, dread pooling in her chest. "Something is coming." Syl tightened her grip on the mask. "We must escape and warn the village." This was only the beginning. As the friends raced toward the cave mouth, the fissure widened and a chill wind poured in, carrying voices that whispered of sorrow and doom. Raven's Hollow waited on the other side, unknowing, unprepared, and about to face a new shadow that would test the bonds of all who stood to protect it. Their story had reached another turning point, and the next chapter would demand sacrifices they could scarcely imagine. But they would face it together, as always, guardians bound by memory, forged in unity, and now, tested by an even darker dream. The fissure in the cave ceiling widened with a grinding crack that echoed like distant thunder. Cold, greenish light spilled into the chamber, mingling with the last of the silver ward's glow. Lily, Kieran, and Syl skidded to a halt at the mouth of the cavern, staring upward in alarm. From the rift fell a trickle of mist, thick and phosphorescent, then a slender, skeletal hand that grasped at the jagged stone. A second later, a pale face emerged, hollow-cheeked, eyes glinting with infinite sorrow, lips parting to draw in the world's last breath. The dream of endless night was no mere specter, it was a spirit of grief given form, born to tear down hope as surely as the Nightborn once sought to drown the land in darkness. Lily tightened her grip on her meteorite dagger. "We fought to seal you, and yet here you come again." The spirit wavered, drifting free of the rock. Its robe of mist unfurled, revealing a body woven from starlight and shadow. Each motion left a faint trail of emerald sparks that hissed when they touched the cave floor. "You cannot bind what is born of despair," it intoned, voice echoing like wind through a tomb. "I am the sorrow of every loss, the echo of every tear. I will break your seals, and Raven's Hollow will weep forever." Kieran stepped forward, chanting the song of ashes and atonement under his breath. Runes of white flame flickered along the cave walls, forming a protective circle. "We will not let you pass," he called. But as his words rang out, the dream extended a finger, and the runes sputtered, dying like candles in a gale. "No mortal charm can hold me," the dream hissed. It raised both arms, and the shattered shards of Alaric's black crystal began to swirl around it, caught in an unseen whirlwind. The shards glowed with malevolent intent, each one humming with corrupt magic that pulsed like a heart gone mad. Syl drew her masked dagger and flung it at the floating fragments. The blade spun through the air, its obsidian edge slicing a shard in two. One half drifted harmlessly to the floor, the other dissolved into a puff of violet smoke. Encouraged, Lily and Kieran joined in, slashing at the crystal shards as they darted toward the rift. But every shard they destroyed was replaced by two more, like shadows multiplying in the absence of light. The dream laughed, a sound that felt like ice fracturing. You cannot fight shadows with steel. A sudden roar split the air. Captain Marrow and his scouts burst into the cave, flaming torches held aloft. The yellow light carved through the gloom, and the dream recoiled. More interlopers, it spat. They, too, shall drown in despair. Marrow's men surged forward with pikes and short swords, meeting the swirling shards head-on. Lily darted between the guards, using her meteorite blade to deflect a shard aimed at a scout's chest. Sparks rained as metal met crystal. One shard severed a torch, its flame sputtering into darkness, another dissolved against Lily's dagger, flooding the cave with acidic whispers. Amid the chaos, Kieran seized a polished iron lantern from the scout's supply. He held it aloft over the dream's head and began reciting a binding verse from Mara's journal, one he had only glimpsed, never tested, a chant of communal memory and defiance. As his voice rose, the lantern's glass glowed with an inner fire, red as a beating heart. The shards trailing the dream were drawn to the lantern's light, snapping together into a single dark crystal orb that hovered above the dream's crown. The legend of the broken heart, Kieran murmured. If we can shatter that orb, we may weaken its power. Syl nodded, raising her obsidian mask high. The metal shimmered with silver runes, and she began the incantation of the first seal in her native tongue, a melody taught by Mara and strengthened by her own reclaimed essence. The mask's runes flared, sending a beam of white light toward the orb. It splintered, crackling, then shattered in a spray of emerald mist. The dream shrieked, arms flailing as its power ebbed. For the first time, it seemed vulnerable. Lily leapt forward, driving her dagger into the ground at its feet. The blade grounded the energy, drawing the dream's form toward it like a moth to flame. The dream writhed, attempting to pull free, but the wards Kieran and Syl wove at its edges held fast. No. It wailed. You cannot bind despair. Lily advanced, voice steady. Despair is only the shadow of hope. And as long as there is someone willing to stand against it, it shall always be bound. With that declaration, Lily pressed her hand against the dream's phantom heart, a glowing knot of sorrow lodged in its chest. The meteorite blade sheathed at her palm glowed warm, and its magic coursed through her veins. The dream convulsed, its form flickering between solid and mist. Kieran and Syl joined hands, adding their voices to Lily's. By memory's light, by sacrifice made, we banish thee into the void of oblivion. The combined power of blade, mask, and voice erupted in a burst of white brilliance that filled the cave and spilled into the forest outside. The torches flared as if struck by lightning, and every shard of corrupted crystal dissolved in the radiance. The dream's final scream echoed like a wounded wind, then was drawn into the meteorite dagger itself, where it fractured into harmless echoes before fading entirely. When the light receded, Lily stood panting, dagger planted in the earth. Kieran and Syl sank to their knees beside her, exhausted but triumphant. Captain Marrow's scouts wiped sweat and soot from their brows, exchanging odd looks. The cavern was still silent but for the dripping of distant water. The rift in the ceiling had cracked wider in the burst of power, but now it seemed to heal, the broken stone knitting itself closed under a shower of silver motes. In the center of the cave floor, the altar's limestone was flawless once more, as if no one had disturbed it for centuries. Syl rose, pressing a gloved hand to her mask's obelisk crest. "The dream of endless night is no more," she declared. "Its sorrow returns to the void it came from. Raven's Hollow is safe again." Kieran exchanged a look with Lily. "Our seals held for centuries, but evil's longing never dies. We must remain vigilant." Lily wiped her brow and knelt to retrieve the meteorite dagger. Its surface was scorched but intact, its magic deeper now for having contained the dream's anguish. "And so our journey continues," she said softly, sheathing the blade. "But tonight, we rest and let Raven's Hollow's people know that light endures." As they exited the cave, the first stars were bright overhead, unpolluted by any lasting shadow. The village below was quiet, the festival's embers glowing softly in the distance. Lily paused to gaze at the lantern-lit streets, the silhouette of the Whispering Gate standing sentinel against the sky. "Tomorrow," she said, "we will honor those who stood with us. And we will weave a new legend, one that speaks of courage, unity, and the power of hope to conquer even the darkest dreams." Kieran and Syl joined her, shoulders touching in a silent bond. Together, the three guardians watched over Raven's Hollow, ready to face whatever chapters yet unwritten might befall their home. The morning sun rose over Raven's Hollow like a promise fulfilled, painting the village in hues of gold and rose. From the high hill where the Whispering Gate stood sentinel, Lily, Kieran, and Syl watched the first rays filter through the latticework of ancient runes. The air was still, brimming with the soft melody of birdsong and the murmured prayers of villagers lighting candles in gratitude. Below, the festival grounds had been transformed into a courtyard of remembrance and renewal. Banners woven from white linen and silver thread fluttered in the gentle breeze, each emblazoned with the three seals: serpent and star, vine and bloom, mask and moon, intertwined in a trinity of guardianship. At the center of the square, a new monument stood, a polished marble plinth upon which rested three symbols carved in bas-relief, representing Lily's meteorite dagger, Kieran's silver lantern, and Syl's obsidian mask. Around the base, flowers sprouted: bright and unblemished violets, lilies, and night-blooming jasmine nurtured by the magic of the land now fully healed. Lily inhaled deeply, tasting the sweetness of baked bread and honey-spiced tea, and let herself smile. It had been a long journey, from the unveiling of the Whispering Gate to the trials of the first seal, the Bloodstar Temple's sacrifices, the Hall of Echoes Atonement, the cleansing of the forest. The rescue of Syl, the defense of the quarry, and the final battle against the dream of endless night. Each trial had tested the bonds of memory, sacrifice, and unity. Yet here they stood, three companions forged into guardians stronger than any ancient magic. Kieran, journal in hand, closed the final pages, his pen resting at the moment the dream had been banished. He looked at Lily and Syl, emotion softening his gaze. This is our story written in triumph and tears. But the true legacy will be carried in the hearts of the people. He lifted the journal high, offering it to the sky as if presenting their shared tale to the very heavens. At his signal, Father Abram stepped forward, his voice carrying like a benediction. Today we honor those who came before us, the guardians who fell when the seals first cracked, the villagers who offered their blood and memories, and the bond of friendship that held our land together. May Raven's Hollow prosper beneath these blessings, and may we never forget the price of our peace. He traced a cross above the monument, sprinkling holy water that shimmered like dew. As the blessing ended, the villagers stepped forward to place offerings at the plinth's base. A weaver laid an embroidered silk pouch filled with lavender, a shepherd placed a silver-forged sheep's bell, children tied spray-painted paper lanterns to nearby trees. With each gift, the monument seemed to glow from within, affirming the harmony between mortal devotion and ancient warding. When the last villager had returned to their seat around the perimeter, Syl approached the monument. She knelt and pressed her obsidian mask's crest against the marble, whispering the ancient words of the first seal's final bind: by memory restored, by sacrifice given, by unity eternal, I stand as guardian reborn. The mask warmed against her fingertips, and a pulse of silver light rippled through the monument, illuminating the runes carved into the stone. Lily and Kieran joined her, resting hands upon her shoulders in solidarity. A hush fell over the crowd as the monument's runic glow spread outward, weaving across cobblestones and through the roots of the great withered oak, now fully healed. Birds took wing, singing in joyful unison, and the wind carried the scent of blossoms yet to bloom. For a single, perfect moment, Raven's Hollow was at one with the living magic that breathed beneath its streets. Then a trumpet's call echoed from the gatehouse, its note bright with hope. The festival began in earnest, dancers in flowing white spun beneath canopy-hung lanterns, musicians struck lyres and tambourines, weaving a melody that seemed older than time yet wholly new, and bakers offered sweet tarts scented with jasmine and mint. Children chased one another through arches of yew boughs, their laughter ringing like bells. Even the guards of the quarries and forest scouts laughed, grateful for a respite from watchful vigilance. Lily walked among them, her cloak of deep midnight blue brushing the cobblestones, greeting friends old and new. She paused to speak with Marta the baker, whose flaky apple, honey tarts had fueled many a hard-won victory. Marta pressed a tart into Lily's hand. "For my hero," she said with a wink. Lily grinned and accepted it, tucking it into her satchel for later. She found Kieran at the edge of the square, helping to light lanterns hung from the ancient yews. He looked up and smiled, warmth in his eyes. "You've done it, all of it," he said softly. "We've done it?" He handed her a lantern whose flame flickered like the memory of distant starlight. For the nights we walked in darkness, so that this light could shine. Lily touched the lantern and met his gaze. And the nights to come, we'll hold this light together. She motioned toward the festival crowd. Come, let's join the dancing. Kieran laughed a clear, joyous sound, and together they crossed to the dancing circle. As they turned beneath swirling lantern light, the motif of the three seals glittered on each banner overhead, a testament to their shared journey. Meanwhile, Syl stood at the threshold of the Whispering Gate, watching the dancers with a thoughtful expression. Though she had reclaimed her mask, she still carried the weight of her divided soul, the guardian born of breach and bound by love. Her obsidian mask gleamed in the sunrise, and beneath its surface, her eyes burned with a serene resolve. Suddenly, a small figure emerged from the crowd, Syl's foster father, old Bram, the village woodcarver who had taken the raped child in after she was rescued from the well. He carried a carved wooden token, a small raven in flight, wings outstretched. He offered it to Syl with trembling hands. Your story began with a mask and a gate, he said. But you gave yourself to us, and we to you. This, carved from the wood of the withered oak, is for you so you never forget where you belong. Tears shimmered beneath Syl's mask. She took the raven token, holding it close to her breast. Thank you, she whispered. I will carry it always, as a reminder that home is more than a place, it is where hearts stand together. Old Bram nodded and stepped back into the crowd, leaving Syl alone with her thoughts. She raised her gaze to the pillars of the Whispering Gate, now sparkling in the dawn, and closed her eyes. In her mind's ear, she heard the voices of the 12 guardians she had forgiven, the spirits of forest and village, the laughter of friends, and the final fading echo of the dream of endless night. All wove together into a tapestry of light and memory. At her side, Lily and Kieran approached, sensing the quiet reverence in Syl's posture. Together, the three stood before the gate as dawn became full day. Kieran broke the silence. What's next for you, Syl? The forest watches, the village thrives, but the gate remains ever open. Syl smiled beneath her mask, a gentle, radiant curve. I will remain its guardian, bridging the world above and the realm within. The gate's magic is eternal, and I will watch over it so that no darkness ever gains foothold again. But I will also walk among my friends, sharing laughter and bread, learning the joys of mortal life. Lily placed a hand on Syl's shoulder. We'll always walk together no matter how many stories lie ahead, this chapter is ours to share. She gestured to the gate. Should any new threat rise, we'll stand as one guardian, scholar, and storyteller, bound by the seals and by our hearts. Kieran spread his arms, encompassing village and forest and gate alike. Then let the tales be told, of three who stood in darkness and kindled hope, of a land reborn by sacrifice and unity, of Raven's Hollow, a place of wonders, home to all who believe in the light. As their voices joined in a final vow, the Whispering Gate hummed with approval, its runes pulsing in rainbow filaments that danced into the sky like a living aurora. The people of Raven's Hollow paused in their revelry, gazing upward in awe and wonder, feeling in their bones the stirring of a new legend. and so, under a sky washed with dawn's soft colors, their story reached its fitting close not as an end, but as the seed of countless more adventures yet unwritten. For in Raven's Hollow, where memory and magic entwined, every ending was but the prologue to a new chapter, and every heart brave enough to hope would find its place in the tales to come. Title: Raven's Hollow, Guardians of the Seals. Description: in the forgotten village of Raven's Hollow, three unlikely heroes, Lily, the blade-wielding storyteller, Kieran, the scholar with the silver lantern, and Syl, the masked guardian reborn, must unite to restore ancient seals and protect their world from encroaching darkness. From braving the Hall of Echoes and the Bloodstar Temple to cleansing the haunted forest and rescuing a child born of the breach, their journey weaves memory, sacrifice, and unity into a new legend. When the dream of endless night threatens to shatter the seals once more, only their shared courage and unwavering bond can kindle hope's light and forge a dawn that will echo through the ages.